Tell us about your memory of an art piece.
I knew about something about the artist, and I think culturally we were coming from the same place, and I think that's why his work resonated with me. And so there's possibly, I've thought about it since, and I think maybe possibly I've sort of projected some sort of narcissistic sense of self onto this artist. But I remember being really excited and going to this show and standing in front of this piece, and I think I almost had some sort of quasi-mystical belief in its power. And you know, I look back at that and I kind of think, well, if I stood in front of the same piece today, would I have this the same kind of experience? And I'm not sure I would, because I was in a particular place at that moment, and it was all kind of linked into you know, the idea of this artist that I had, which was, I remember coming across pictures of his sketchbooks, and he'd sketched something by the comedian Lenny Bruce, and he'd used a famous quote that I kind of almost, you know, lived my life by at that time, which was the truth is what is, not what should be. What should be is a dirty lie. And I thought this was, I remember reading this, and it was something, you know, literally it was like some sort of something that I just, that's all I can say really, I lived my life by. And as soon as I saw that he kind of, like, you know, came from the same sort of cultural position, I was felt I understood where he was coming from. And if he wasn't dead, we'd probably be the same age, but you know, he is, so that's a bit, a bit abstract. But so I stood in front of this piece, and it was knocked together, and I loved that about him. You know, he used to stay on people's couches, and he used to just kind of, you know, paint on anything, and he'd just grab some old bits of wood and tie a bit of string around it and knock it together. He'd paint on people's fridges, on their door, on walls. And this particular piece actually was really simple, and it had a few colours to it, and it also had the words to repel ghosts, and I thought that was hugely significant. And I stood in front of it, and I'd obviously decided that I wasn't in the league of what he considered to be ghosts, which I saw as a kind of metaphor for a certain kind of person, which was like I say again, linked into my ideas, which at that time were very much about us and them. So it's kind of very kind of countercultural stuff, which maybe I've grown out of a little bit. But I stood in front of it, and I felt, you know, I felt that he was communicating directly to me.
Many years ago, during the era of Bieber and Bridget Riley and people sticking daffodils in rifles and burning bras, I was sent to an art gallery to look for a piece of work to discuss in class. And I walked around the entire gallery and was about to give up. There was nothing that attracted me, even things that I had preconceived ideas about being attracted by. And I turned around, and behind me was a very small painting, and it stopped me in my tracks. It's very simple. Its structure is triangular. Its palette is muted. It's figurative. And it made me feel at peace. It made me feel grounded. It made me have something to aspire to. Not as an artist, because I'm not, but just in life. And it's been in the background of my mind ever since, and when I was asked to talk about a piece, this was what came into my mind immediately. And as I pondered this and sat in my sitting room, I realized that the entire palette of my sitting room is the palette of this picture 40 years later.
In thinking of what pieces I might talk about tonight, I kept coming back to pieces that have been very profoundly experiential for me, and most of those were pieces I'd experienced with other people. So my piece is actually a building. It's a building in California. It's a kind of iconic modernist site, and I chose it because I had really a kind of very sort of profound experience with a group of people visiting the site once, and then also a quite sort of romantic experience visiting the site a second time. Both of those were years ago, over 10 years ago, and I would say that this space, this place, has been kind of part of my consciousness, subconsciousness for all of that time, but I've only been thinking about it recently because a group of students I work with have been studying it. I've been thinking about it quite a lot since. I haven't been back to it for 10 or so odd years. It's a kind of modernist icon. It's a concrete site. It's set on the Pacific. It frames the Pacific Ocean. It's very much like a painting in that sense. The building itself is a frame for the site. Water runs through it, which is the kind of core, runs down its spine, and is the kind of core metaphor for the site, I think. You approach it, I actually don't recall, I was thinking today, I don't actually recall driving up to it, or any of the sort of effects around the day on either of the two visits I made to this site. But I remember arriving up the central sort of staircase. You sort of walk up shallow set of very white concrete stairs, and are immediately kind of confronted with this frame of open space, which is the sky over the Pacific Ocean. A river kind of running directly, I believe, east to west. A small rivulet is sort of at that top of the stairs and draws you along to the edge of the end of the building, at which point you can sort of see the cliffs below and you can see the ocean right below. The kind of second visit I was talking about was very much the beginning of a sort of very important relationship. And now, kind of thinking back to that time, it's sort of a nice metaphor to me that relationships ended, and I really think of that sort of site as a starting point and also a sort of story for the whole sort of experience with that person. And I think I'll end there.